Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the best show of the best shows, where we talk about everything from comic books to even social commentary. This is episode number of For Canon's Sake. So whether you're a normie, a wannabe expert, or a tryhard, get in there. And now, for your host, Mr. Eric July.
Man, this week has been nuts. It's been crazy, man. This week has been crazy. We got so much to talk about. Well, I don't want to even say so much. Let's just say that there's a lot to say. Let's just say that there is a lot to say. I want to thank you, of course, tuning in for Canon's Sake. Episode is live on all major digital platforms, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, whatever. Of course, you can get more information at forcanonsake.com or visit ericdjuly.com. Man, this week has been crazy. It's been both a positive and a negative. I'll go ahead and give you the positives that I've had a lot of content to create surrounding what the hell has been taking place this week. Had a strong week. It's Friday. Friday is the day I'm recording this episode. But man, this week has given me just so much material to make videos about, to discuss. So my social media has been live. That's the positive. Now the negative is what we, of course, are going to get into. Let's go ahead and acknowledge the elephant in the room. You know about YouTube's new policy change, and if you don't, this is long form, so I might as well explain it to you. Though I do have a video going through the exact text. YouTube released a new blog earlier in the week, yet again, talking about how they are going to essentially crack down on hate. Now, when you read that headline or something along those lines, YouTube wants to tackle hate, I believe was the word that they used. It's like, oh yeah, that's a positive thing because hate bad, right? But in this day and age, you have to take everything with not even a grain of salt. You just got to reanalyze it. Because you never know. What the hell is hate? Because it's one thing for something to be legitimately hateful. But for the most part, it's a subjective term. And now, in a day and age where terms are just thrown out there willy-nilly to mean really anything the person that's using it, whatever they want it to mean. They can apply that to whoever they want to apply it to. And that's the problem. So I was reading that and I was like, yeah, I don't know. But then you look at the timing of all of this. And that's what brings us all together. Steven Crowder, who is a content creator, a comedian, I believe he's still with CRTV, or formerly CRTV, The Blaze. Please correct me if that is correct, or incorrect, excuse me. But we know that he produces material on YouTube. Carlos Mazza has a problem with that. Carlos Mazza is a guy that I didn't know who the hell he was until all of this popped off. But apparently he works for Vox. And he isn't too happy with guys like Steven Crowder. I showed a video on my channel, which you can go watch, and which Carlos himself is basically saying that the alt-right and those sorts of creators, that's YouTube ideal creator. And obviously Steven Crowder, he's saying, is one of those. Now, Carlos, if you watch his Twitter, which he has me blocked, so I can't watch it anymore. But before I blocked, I briefly went through it. He's a nutcase in the sense that he's your standard blue check mark leftist, in which he uses the term white supremacist very willy-nilly, bigotry, hatred, and so forth. Anybody that makes a joke, anybody that says some things that he dislikes is what it sounds like. He lumps them in the box because anybody with a brain understands that Steven Crowder, of all people, doesn't matter if you're a fan, this is objectively speaking, he's not what any rational person would be considering to be alt-right or white supremacist. But out of all of this, Carlos Maza has created a chain reaction by way of YouTube, and this is why we're in the position that we're in right now, in which you've had so many content creators come out pissed because it seems like their livelihood is at stake and they are not happy about that. Because by putting YouTube, Carlos Maza, putting YouTube as well as putting Steven Crowder in the crosshairs and wanting to, guilt trip YouTube. Oh, they're advertisers. Your advertisements are popping up on people that are bigots and so forth. Just that's the type of stuff he's on. So to basically say not only YouTube is they're bad, the advertisers are bad because their advertisements are being put on people that he wants to lump in these boxes. But in result, thousands of channels have been demonetized. Thousands of channels have been either, let's say, taken down completely, suspended. Now, I'm a libertarian. And YouTube has the right to do that. However, I'm not going to get into they're a publisher, public entity. No. YouTube does not have a monopoly on social media. Let me get this straight. I know this is going to piss some of y'all off, but I am consistent. I'm not one of those Tucker Carlson types who, this is good. Free market is good. But wait a minute, things are happening that I dislike. Therefore, we need government to step in. I ain't with all that. There are alternatives to YouTube. And just because they aren't catching on like YouTube does not mean that they don't exist. Nobody's forcing anybody to upload videos on YouTube. They do not have a monopoly on social media, on video media. I've talked about this and how YouTube is really incentivizing alternatives to come up. You've seen BitChute. You've seen, which I was already on. You got the D-Tubes and D-Libs of the world. These alternatives are going to start popping up. So don't give me that. Don't give me that. Now, what YouTube does, and a little flaky because we all, as content creators, we have these terms of service and these sort of contractual obligations that YouTube, because they're contractual, they should be held by those. No more loose definitions. No more willy-nilly, I'm going to say this is hate and not give you a reason, not even give you a person that you can even contact. I'm going to be very vague. That's not right. And I would argue for those that have an issue with, that's the approach that you should be having, not trying to get the government involved. This is why I criticize YouTube, though I don't know what it means. In the blog, goes to speak to their little vagueness. But in the blog, they're like, yo, we're working with lawmakers. So it's like, wait a minute. That ain't what we want. So what does that mean? But nonetheless, it would make more sense for you all to attack it from that perspective. People have signed contracts. YouTube has to uphold their portion, their side of it. If I were you, I'd be crawling through that terms of service and then getting on their ass. But nonetheless, YouTube has the right to make those rules, ultimately. They do have that right. So I don't want anybody saying like I'm being consistent in this matter. They have the right. I've been very clear. But people have been caught in the crossfire and their channels have been taken down. You got people that aren't even fans of Steven Crowder, don't even produce the same content as Steven Crowder. Journalists, teachers. In result of this being completely demonetized or having their site suspended. Now, I'm also not one of those guys, and again, it's a matter of consistency. I get why you want a popular medium, a popular platform that a lot of individuals are using. You don't want people on there just doing crazy stuff like inciting violence, threatening people. But that's not what's taking place here. This is a simple fact of a guy who, from my understanding, hasn't created anything himself, Mr. Carlos Maza. This was the point that I brought up. I don't see anything associated with this guy outside of Vox. And I believe before then he worked for another organization, but he hasn't built anything himself. And maybe this is why he can do these sorts of things. Not only having the Voxes of the world, which I believe is owned by NBC, but he has that platform to back on. And it's not anything he created. He didn't start any of those entities. So maybe he doesn't understand why a lot of people are frustrated. Because they've spent years. Like my channel has gone through, for example, multiple rebrands. I've been uploading videos since I was 16 years old. It's 2006. I was a teenager when I first uploaded videos on YouTube. I'm in my late 20s. And believe it or not, my channel didn't get popping like it was now until last year. Now, I've always, certainly when I did the rebrand about five, six, I was still in college, so it had to be more like 2011, 2012-ish. Maybe 2010, 2011-ish. That was when my YouTube started to get notable, if you will. I had that's when I started getting into tens of thousands because I was doing those vocal covers and stuff like that. But now we're at 100,000, and a lot of that is credited for material that I've dropped within the last year and some change. So that's a reason for numbers. So you look at that, building it from the ground up. I'm not one of these guys that got lucky and had 100,000 subscribers just like that. It took me over a decade, 13 years? Carlos Maza hasn't created anything. Maybe that's why. And I hope I'm saying his last name right. But when you look at this guy, you comb through what he has to say about certain things, he's just a standard leftist. And as always, they try to put everybody they can in these boxes. Everybody that they possibly can, they put in these boxes. You can go comb through my videos. When the alt-right first even came a thing that people knew anything about, I called it. I said, this is going to be the new boogeyman. This is going to be the new boogeyman. Because they need dragons to slay. Who the hell knew who Richard Spencer was before he met with a couple of hundred people? If that. I don't even think it was that many. And the mainstream media decided to cover that. And in doing that, they gave them a spotlight. And now they perpetuated this idea like the alt-right is just everywhere. It was a new boogeyman because I don't believe that the mainstream leftists, they have anything to fall back on if they can't have a dragon to slay. But the problem with this is that now the word is meaningless, just like fascism is meaningless. These are not terms that apply literally, right? These are terms that they try to lump everybody else in the box. It's as many people they can get in there. All right, we have a boogeyman. We've recognized that this is bad. And we've convinced the public, and rightfully so in that case, that these are the least preferable people. Okay, bam. What if we can just get people that we dislike in our adversaries and we can align them with them? Which is what has happened. So now Steven Crowder is alt-right now. People are being called alt-right and alt-right sympathizer and white supremacists that aren't any of that. just because they dared to go against leftism and dared to go against the things that they like to highlight. This is incredible. But this is not a new tactic. This is something that they do. This is what they do. And Carlos Maza, unfortunately, he uses the marginalized, right? That's a term he used, marginalized. People are being marginalized. The marginalized, right? That's who they're attacking, the marginalized. YouTube doesn't care about the marginalized, the queer community. Marginalized communities. It's the new buzz term. Like he's helping them. Like other minorities like myself have not been caught in the crosshairs. And maybe not directly because, or crossfire, rather, maybe not directly in a sense. I will say that. I'm not, unfortunately, one of the ones, and fortunately, not unfortunately, I did not get demonetized. I've had three of my latest videos have been demonetized, I will say that. And I've submitted reviews and they've been late. Usually I can submit a review and they'll approve it within, usually on that same day, within hours. Now I'm on I uploaded a video, 3 days ago, 2-3 days ago. And this still they haven't approved the review. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like a coincidence that it comes after the policies. And rightfully so. When I'm looking at guys that I know, such as Ford Fisher, who is not a white supremacist, he's not all right. He just he's a reporter in a sense. He shares news. And he's not more of an analyst like a lot of other individuals like myself are. He literally goes on site and he records and he interviews people. He got demonetized. And a lot of other individuals got demonetized. So it's like people like myself are like, well, wait a minute. Who's next? And a lot of those guys are minorities. So he's not helping them. And that's a gimmick. That's just that's the thing that people could just recognize as a bad thing. And that is doing least preferable, let's say, actions, right? Upon the marginalized, right? If he can word it like that, there's an oppressive body and there's the minorities that are being oppressed, then he can, that's gold for him. And he's perpetuating his victimhood because Steven Crowder has said things that he doesn't like. And this is my thing. Internet is the internet, right? Carlos Maza is a guy that I'm pretty sure knows how to use the block button because he has blocked me, as well as a lot of other individuals. So that in itself is telling me that you recognize that you don't have to come into conflict with people that you don't want to come in conflict with. You don't have to even see their work. YouTube has a mechanism, which is why I want people to understand that this is a joke, because YouTube has an option that you can press that says not interested. You don't have to see their work anymore. Oh, sure, he couldn't use that. No, because it wasn't about that. It was not about advertisers. It was about the fact that there's people that are being successful, that have following and being able to monetize efforts. So make a living off of making material that he doesn't like. So he's trying to guilt trip the platform, the advertisers, trying to lump people in these boxes that they are not, just because they are doing things that he apparently maybe either has an inability to do or he thinks shouldn't be done. You're sharing a platform with people that you disagree with. And what I don't like about this is that Carlos Maza, again, you comb through his Twitter, he talks down on other individuals. It's not just with the whole milkshaking thing. He goes around calling people, and you want to talk about misidentifying people's political affiliation, calling them something as derogatory as a white supremacist and the alt-right, things that people may be very against. He's going around and calling them that. Why does he get to throw his hands and then hide them behind his back? He doesn't. He doesn't get to do that. And then fall back, they call me what I call myself, and that is he calls himself queer. People call him queer. And that's how it is. That's the internet. People are gonna call him names. But that's what happens when you use your following to down talk on other people, and then they notify their following. It kind of happens. And when it comes to the whole doxing thing, Steven Crowder has been on record multiple times saying, don't do that. Don't do it on his behalf. If he's being indeed doxxed. That's just how it works. You don't think Steven Crowder has had his mentions lit up? You don't think Steven Crowder has comments of people telling him, calling him all kinds of things? You don't think that's the case? I would say that you're dumb, you're blind, if you don't think that's the case. But Carlos, who is I believe he's gay and he's Hispanic, if I'm not mistaken. So he has this minority status, and that's what he's trying to perpetuate. Hey, look at me, I'm a minority. He's saying mean things about me, as if just being a minority means that you can. I mean, yeah, you get to call people what they are. You get to call them white supremacists and all that, which is, again, effectively, you want to talk about slurs, effectively, somebody's going to consider that a slur because that's not what they are. Yeah, you're trying to label them as such. So you get to do that, right? You get to do that. You get to do that. But the minute somebody says something about you, as definitely making a joke about you, or your sexuality or anything like that, it's off limits. And this is what I despise. It's not just coming from the LGBTQ plus community. It's coming from other minority communities as well, and which they think that they're above being joked about. Oh man, equality, right? But being offended and losing your mind because somebody said something about you, something mean about you, and they joked about you. Steven Crowder, of all people, who you should expect that from because he's a comedian. Come on, man. But even if it is a slur, I want to be consistent on this matter. I get it. Even if you take offense to it, which is what this ultimately boils down to, because that's more so in the eye of the person that, in terms of how you receive that. If somebody makes fun of me for being black, I'm going to laugh at his ass. I'm probably going to monetize his comment. First, that's what I'm going to do first. First, I'm going to monetize his comment. You say something crazy about me, I'm going to monetize your comment. That's just how it works. So that's an option. I don't know if Carlos maybe lacks the creativity to be able to do that. That's what I would do. Hey, man, I've been talking about this guy. He responds. A lot of people are talking about us. This is an opportunity to monetize. That's what I do. That's just me, though. But I'm not going to call for somebody to be taken down from a platform simply because I disagree with them or I don't like what they had to say about me alone. Like, I just won't do that. That's just me. And I get that not everybody's like that. And again, YouTube, they don't want people to incite violence or anything like that. And that is one thing. But Crowder is mild, or relatively mild compared to a lot of people that say some pretty raunchy and loud things, which I'd argue that Carlos does. But he gets away with it because he gets to play the victim. And he's a minority. Come on, dog. My plex with Carlos Miles is that, and maybe he doesn't realize this because he's still continuing on this campaign, he's made it a little more difficult for a lot of creators that otherwise were just producing content. And YouTube wants to make that policy. This is why I will continuously say, and this is my advice to all content creators, if you say anything that's just can be taken the wrong way, such as myself, you need to start developing your own stuff. I'm not talking about with just platforms. Get your own website going and be able to touch people from multiple different angles. That sounded really bad. But you know what I mean, right? You got to be able to reach people. No, damn it. Okay. You have to be able to get the content that you produce out there to as many individuals as you possibly can. That's what it ultimately boils down to. Because at any given time, this platform can change on you. And if you're depending on that as a source of income and that alone, then, hey, man, I think that's a bad tactic. Which is why I spent the better half of the year trying to get other material out. This is why I was like, all right, I got to launch my website. So EricDJuly.com is live. This is why I have multiple streams of revenue, right? I'm a writer, aside from the music and stuff like that. I ghostwrite. Not only just just writing my music, I write other people's music for money. I have other ways, other streams of income. And that's what you should as well. And if anything, you need to try to cut out the middleman as much as you can. Get up, say what you will about Patreon, but there's subscribe stars and some Patreons, and there's other ways to be voluntarily funded by your audience directly, crowdfunded. Because you produce material that they want you to produce. They want you to continue, and they know that you have to be comfortable in order to do that. Which is why my Patreon is the way that it is and set up the way that it is. So I have that. I have YouTube. I have my writing services that I offer. I have BeingLibertarian.com. I have all of these different things that I can do. And I have the best supporters in the business. I mean, my supporters are awesome, dude. Like, I'm not the most known guy in the world, but I got guys that donate hundreds of dollars. And when I try to give them something in return, like, hey, man, take some merchandise. No. I do this because I want you to continue to do what you do. It almost brings tears to my eyes. I'm not even over-exaggerating that. I have the best followers, period. Because I'm not as big, and I know I make more money in like donations and stuff like that than most guys that have way more subscribers. Because the people that mess with me, they mess with me 1,000%. And I love it. So I appreciate that. But that's what I encourage you other guys as content creators. Because you see how this is going. And this is why a lot of people were trying to warn you about this. Like, yeah, they got Alex Jones, but it wasn't just going to end with him. Are you crazy? And they have the mainstream left has Hollywood on their side. They have this gigantic, corporate entities that have influence behind them, backing them, funding them. So, with that being said, you got to get ahead of that. You got to get ahead of that. But I do want on record that Carlos Mazda is a sucker. He's soft. And he's made, things a little difficult for a lot of content creators on YouTube. All because he has a problem with somebody saying things that he doesn't agree with. And being able to monetize that. That's what it boils down to. People are able to have audiences and be creative and make millions of dollars, thousands of dollars on YouTube. And he doesn't like that because they say things that he doesn't want them to say. Oh, he's a bigot. He says many things about me, the queer community. He sells these shirts that I don't like. And again, I still don't understand why he gets to be above, why any minority, any group, majority or minority, gets to be above being talked about. I don't understand that. Who the hell are you, homie? You don't get that luxury. Well, in YouTube's case, I guess you do. But they are incentivizing the alternatives that are out there, that are growing. YouTube does not have to stay at the top. It's going to be hard to bring them down, but YouTube does not have to stay at the top. This is a market. And the only way they can stay at the top, and this is what goes on to the monopolization and the cronyism, is that they have to work with government entities to stay at the top. I don't know if Google is doing that directly, but that's kind of how it has to work. For those that don't know that. That's why when people talk down on capitalism, they say, oh, without the regulations, the monopolies, the corporations would take over. And there's never been a monopoly in the history of history, and there never will be a monopoly in the history of history. And the futures of futures that it will never exist, right? And they not use the state to become one, to be a monopoly, because that means you have legal exclusive control over something, an industry, a product, a good, a resource. In order to have that, you have to be stopping people from entering said market. And the only way you can do that is by using the way of the state to essentially regulate people out, make it difficult for them to enter, or completely outlaw it. But as it stands right now, there are plenty of alternatives to YouTube. You might not like them. They might not be as good as YouTube. You might not be as familiar with them, but they exist. And honestly, YouTube with their new policies are incentivizing us to do that. Next thing I want to talk about, moving on. We'll get to my pull list for the week. But moving on. Marvel executive says that they are actively working on diversity and inclusiveness as a title of one of my videos. Where in the hell did that come from? Well, Marvel Studios. I know we kind of shifted gears really quick. EVP of production Victoria Alonso says it, and I quote, "I feel honored to have a member of the LGBT plus group represented in our films, and I hope the future shows that." Then goes on to say, "I can tell you we are actively working on making our universe as diverse and inclusive as we can. Be patient with us. We have a lot coming in the future." What the hell does that tell me? Well, it tells me what I've always said is that the SJWs have successfully been able to infiltrate comic media, be it in actual comics or TV or film and anything like that. And now they're going to be focusing on efforts going forward, even though that's not what built this up, right? If that's not what built this up, they're going to be going out of their way to promote their social agenda. And that's what this is. This is their social agenda. Diversity and inclusiveness, right? It'd be one thing if they just created characters and said, you know what, the plot calls for this. But that's not what they're doing. She's saying, we're working towards this. So it's unnatural. That's what you're telling me right off the rip. It's unnatural. You are telling me that instead of moving where the plot moves you, even working with the fans in terms of what they actually want, not what the loud SJWs want, they're moving towards and trying to work towards a more diverse and inclusive universe. And man, anytime those terms are used together, they never mean anything good. They never mean anything good. Like, my thing is that why do you feel as an individual you are owed that? Why? What makes you owed representation? Why? Oh, because Hollywood has an ego so massive, and individuals within it, it makes them feel good when they can get on this little pedestal and use their platform, which isn't really their platform, but built off the backs of other stuff that came way before them in comic book characters. But they can use this to be like, hey, look at me. I'm a diversity hire. And you probably, that's probably what they're pressing. Hey, man, you need more women. You need more black people. You need more gay people. You need more Hispanics. You need Asians. You need all this. Where are they at? And if you hire me to act the role, you would be doing a service to everybody, because that's what we want. And then all the little kids can see me. That's what they always say, right? All the kids that see me, it's for them. They can see them. They can see themselves in me. Because we're the same color, because we're the same gender, because we're the same sexuality, right? Because, that's just the only way that people can relate to people. This is a joke. Only way you can relate to somebody is because of whether or not they have the same skin tone. It's based on the same sexuality, the same gender. Are you joking? But this is the idea that they perpetuate. Get your kids out of public schools. But this is the idea that they perpetuate. It's a nonsensical idea. And this is the mildly controversial thing that I'm going to say. But it's the reality of the situation. As a member of the LGBT plus community, which I know this isn't exclusively talking about that, but that was what the question that Victoria Alonso, that was in reference to that. But you got to face the reality that you are a big time minority in the scope of American culture, in the scope of culture in general, in the whole entire world. Most people are not affiliated or do not identify as LGBT plus. Now, that doesn't mean that people hate you for your existence. Some people may disagree. And I know sometimes y'all can't tell the difference between that. Somebody like, you know what, I'm not really with that. Kind of keep that over there, right? They think that means that they're hating them. But you have to come to terms with the reality that you are my very, very small, insignificant minority in that regards. And by insignificant, I'm meaning that in the scope of comparison to, let's say straight people, for example. So most relationships obviously are going to be portrayed as such. But also you got to take in the harsh reality that a lot of people don't want to see that played out on screen because they're not with it. Some people just find it absolutely gross. They don't want to see women kissing women. A lot of dudes are okay with that. But a lot of dudes, and they're hypocrites, I will admit that, don't want to see a dude kissing a dude. They certainly may not want to see a sex scene between a dude and a dude. And I would like to think that you would recognize that, right? And when pushing for stuff like this, and I'm not saying they're just pushing for sex scenes and gay people. Look, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you got to take into consideration a lot of people don't want to see that played out on screen. But in sort of trying to hyper-emphasize like, hey, pick me, I don't think you're helping yourselves out. Because a lot of people like you, I'm sure, don't want to be forced to accept something that they don't want to, they don't want to accept. It's just kind of how individuals operate. But it's not just with you. How many black anarcho-capitalists are being depicted in the media? None. They don't exist. But I'm not going around trying to say, hey, man, you know what y'all should do? Include me. Because if we go down that rabbit hole, we'll never end. And the product is going to be severely lacking because of that. Because you tried to overemphasize representation. But the reality of the fact is not all individuals are going to be represented. Not all individuals should be represented. The analogy I've used a lot is that some of my favorite shows growing up, which it wasn't as many people bitching about diversity then, but we're exclusively black. Almost exclusively black, maybe white people here and there. But I grew up watching like The Living Singles of the World, which had almost pretty much an entirely black cast. So why would I push for diversity in that? Likely there was other Married with Children and stuff like that was almost entirely white that I could get with. Why people owe this diversity effort? The shows were excellent. The shows were good. And people can see themselves if that's what it's about, which you shouldn't be trying to see yourself in fictional characters anyway. Take your kids out of public schools. But you shouldn't be doing that. I'd argue. You should be trying to have your self-esteem rely upon whether or not you see a person that looks like you. And they don't even look like you. They just maybe have the same amount of melanin in your skin. But come on, bros. Not everybody's going to be represented. And certainly when we're talking about comic book culture, a lot of the more popular characters that people want to see are not these characters that I know a lot of people are going to want to bring in just because of their race, sexuality, and so forth. And then y'all are going to get mad calling people homophobic and all these other things because they didn't want to see it played out on screen. They didn't support it. And here we are. I'm calling it right now. If it doesn't succeed, if they bring in, let's say, a gay person that's just really loudly and openly gay on screen, being played out on screen, and a lot of people say, you know what, I'm not really trying to see a character that's really centered around that, they could just call it right homophobic. As if just not wanting to see something means that you're scared of them, because that's what homophobic means. But you have to recognize the reality, and it's a harsh reality. Doesn't mean people hate you. But I will say that you're incentivizing people to have more issues with you, and that's a lot of minorities in that fact. You're incentivizing people to take issue with you when you're trying to essentially force your lifestyle down their throat, which is what you claim that you don't want other people to do. And that's not to say that you can't put a gay person on screen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Absolutely not. That's not what anybody is saying. I don't know anybody that's saying that. Maybe people saying that, but I don't know anybody that's saying that. But when you start to prioritize diversity and inclusiveness, you are sacrificing the plot, because you're trying to force this person in, this social agenda in, this types of people in, because you have this social agenda that you want to focus on diversity and inclusiveness, as if that is and it's never in thought. It's always in identity and how you appear. So what's going to end up happening is that we're probably going to get these characters that pop up that screw up the plot line. We're gonna have unnecessary retcons where classically non-gay, non-black, this characters pop up, which they already have. You have Heimdall, you have Valkyrie, based on Norse mythology, but all of a sudden she's black because of reasons. Though you say the same thing about Black Panther. Oh no, the race, the culture there in Africa, it's part of the lineage. It makes sense for them to all be black. But Norse mythology, which is the whitest thing that you can get, a character based on that becoming black as well, that's different. These people don't read comics. Why are we trying to appeal to these people that don't even read comics? They just want to see their nonsense played out on screen, and they don't give a damn if it sacrifices the plot, the good storytelling, the character building, or if it means a complete retcon, which is what we saw in the sense of Marvel, which still hurts my damn soul. But I will say this. Marvel, you've done a decent job in developing this community, this universe. Just remember what got you there. You built on the back of the OGs, in Iron Man, in Thor, Hulk. You brought in the most popular, probably superhero of all time, in Spider-Man, certainly in Marvel's case at least. There's no more need to shoehorn. If anything, learn from what happened with Captain Marvel. There's no need to shoehorn, which I know you're not. Movie made a lot of money because of the shoehorn. They're going to take that and maybe make it seem like, oh, well, people want to see this shit. It has nothing to do with the fact that you put this movie right in between the most crazy cliffhanger and the ultimate endgame, and you have Fury having his pager. So you are basically incentivizing everybody, hey, you want to know about this new character that we're bringing in that's going to be part of the plot? You got to watch this movie. Whatever. Anyway.
Yo, Eric, you nerd. Quit with the mumbo jumbo and talk about some new comics. What's on your pull list for the week?
On the pull list for the week, man, it's a lot going on. We have Justice League issue number 25. We got Shazam issue 6, which is going to be very interesting. I guess it's talking about Batson's father. His father returns, may destroy the Shazam family. Savage Avengers, which, man, that first issue of Savage Avengers was incredible. And it makes me very excited to see what's going to pop off in the future. So we have Savage Avengers issue number 2. And for those that aren't familiar with that, you know it's bringing in, obviously, Logan and Wolverine and That's Conan the Barbarian. We got Brother Voodoo, which I'm very excited about. We got Punisher. We got some characters, obviously, that I'm missing. Elektra, Venom is being brought in. Man, I'm really excited for this. Next, we have Batman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, issue number 2. We have Batman, issue 72. Uncanny X-Men, issue 19. We also have Cosmic Ghost Rider, Destroys History, which is the goofiest story that Marvel has right now in issue number 4 of Cosmic Ghost Rider. Black Cat, issue number 1, which I was very stoked for. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen out of all of this. The artwork in it looks a little, but I'm interested to see what comes out of this. We have Guardians of the Galaxy, issue number 1. That's the annual number 1. War of the Realms, issue 5. So I believe this is completing it. So War of the Realms, issue number 5. New Agents of Atlas, issue number 3. And Deadpool. Was it this week? Deadpool, issue number 12, I believe. But yeah, we have some War of the Realms stuff. I'm really interested to get into that, seeing what's going down with War of the Realms. We'll see, man. I know a lot of people aren't really stoked. It kind of started off like, yeah, man, this is nice. But I think they kind of overdid it with all the side stuff. And they weren't focusing enough on just trying to build on the whole Malachites and everything like that. But I'm going to certainly do a video and complete all of that.
That's going to do it for today's episode of For Canon's Sake with Eric July. Be sure to keep it locked for the best mix of comics and political commentary you'll ever hear. And I mean ever hear. To get caught up or to contact the show, be sure to visit forcanonsake.com.